Today we have some very special guests on our All Means All forum. Today we're discussing a very sensitive topic called bullying. And we have three special guests with unique experiences, and we are so appreciative of you coming on our show. And our first guest is Sam Blankensee, all the way from Ireland. And will be talking to us later. And next to him, we have the fabulous Andrew Campbell, better known as Dr. ABC.
Thank you.
And to my right, the gorgeous Miss Yuko. So we will hear from them about their experiences with regards to regarding bullying. So Sam, would you start us off?
Yeah, so I experienced a lot of exclusion within school. So from kind of what we call senior infants, so about 5, up until really about 16, 17, or potentially even 18. I was a really awkward kid. And I'm also trans, so I was hanging out predominantly with girls in school. And so at a younger age, there would have been more of us, but I was always the kid that they went, oh, well, we don't want to be friends with her any longer. We don't want to play with you. We don't want to be your friend anymore. And I had that experience kind of every year or so, all the way up through my schooling. It's only the last couple of years that I've realized I'm neurodivergent. And it explains for me quite a bit of what would have maybe gone on there. But the really awkward kid who is overly chatty, probably, but then my peers basically decided that they didn't want to associate with me any longer, and it became a very lonely space. So I actually moved schools when I was 11 to a school in the nearby town, and what I did at that stage was I moved from a mixed school to an all-girls school from my secondary school times. But the reason I kind of eventually chose that all-girls school was the fact that the school I went to was a feeder school for the secondary school. So the bullying predetermined a quite uncomfortable experience for me of being a non-binary masculine person in an all-girls school.
I can just imagine what that I cannot imagine, let me say. Andrew, would you like to briefly tell us?
Thank you. For me, my experience with bullying happened also in schools, right? It's happened as early as grade 1. You know, as a little boy, I was quite effeminate, okay? But I was also very outspoken, and you were told a lot to shut up, right? Shut up, you know, the older you get, you realize shut up is not just verbal, it's shut up physically, shut up with your talents, shut up with your gifts, shut up with your ability. So that bullying for me, at a very early age, I realized it was shutting me down, not just my voice, but my presence, my involvement, my inclusion. I would be shut up in the library, but I'd be shut up on the playground as well. And so you want to be kept silent. They want you to be silent. As a matter of fact, I felt like by grade 5, and it was at 10, they definitely didn't want to see you. So the shut up becomes don't be here, disappear. It becomes really, really strong exclusion. And then when I went to high school, secondary school, high school, grade 7, 8, 9, you realize you could feel it because you look around and realize, well, where's everyone? Where's everyone? And then you realize that you have been excluded, and that bullying came through the form of exclusion. Anyone but you, or everyone is welcome but you. And I've been through that quite a bit at a very young age. You get to realize that you are being excluded for reasons that sometimes you didn't even understand. And that was something that I think bothered me when I got older, that I realized I was being bullied for things that I didn't even understand. I remember, you know, being described as gay, and all those strong words we use back in Jamaica for gay. At that time, I didn't understand even what gay was. What is this gay thing, right? But you were being accused and labeled with those words, and it felt horrible. It was horrible. You know, I think we have to realize the impact that bullying has had on many of us. It was horrible. And so, yeah, that would be, I'll share my first part of my
Andrew,
story.
you shared with me the other day your experience as a teacher of being bullied in the professional context. Can you kind of elaborate on that for us a little bit?
That is important. And it's a good segue from me being a student to now being a teacher. And being a teacher, the bullying is different because now it's coming from outside of schools. It's coming from parents. And you kind of maybe want to redefine what bullying is at that time, because you wouldn't think it was bullying, but those still looks, the questions, the conversations, the inquiring was very hostile. And it felt violent because you now were being questioned if it's safe, not for you to be in school, but for children to be around you as a teacher. So it comes again with the assumptions, the stereotypes, and I can tell you for a fact that that's why for me I don't play with the assumptions and the stereotypes, because they follow you, and now it's no longer the playground. It's now your career. It's now your career. And so the bullying goes to that level. And I think a myth that I want to talk about in my response is that we really think bullying is for just the classroom and the kids on the playground. Bullying is happening in the staff room in our schools. Bullying is happening in PTA meetings and parent council. Bullying is happening at every single level at our society. And it's not just a school thing, it's a people thing. And when people are doing harm to each other. And that's the last thing I'll say is using the word harm, because somehow we are not using the word harm with bullying. And it's harmful. It's harmful. So thank you. And thank you for that question.
Thanks so much, Andrew. And you touched on a number of the top things that we're going to touch on later as well. So we now have Yuko.
Okay.
Please tell us your story.
Okay. At first, to begin with, as a background, I have a handicapped brother, and he's physically okay, but he cannot speak and kind of mentally retarded. And when I was elementary school, first grade, the bullying started. And they imitated my brother's voice or attitude and in front of me, and to make fun of me, to make me feel really bad. So, but at that time, I didn't feel so hurt, and I could get through it. But my family and I went through a lot of difficulties to live with my handicapped brother, and we had a lot of discrimination also, yes, and also a lot of difficulty, and we collaboratively lived together, encouraged ourselves, yeah, and the bullying became severe at the age of 13. And the whole classroom became like an enemy to me, and they wanted to attack me verbally and sometimes physically. They hit shoes of mine, and also they wrote bad graffiti, bad thing, but words like die or get out or so very bad things. And how is your brother doing and so on. That's kind of hurting words filled with on my desk. And but I really thought, I don't have to erase them using my eraser. They should erase. So for a month I studied on the desk. I didn't do anything about the desk. Then finally, 1 month later, my tutor, a classroom teacher, noticed, and he started to say, "Oh, what happened to your desk? Did you write?" Then why? Why do I have to write this? This is my desk. Then he said, "Oh my God." And he realized the bullying was happening to me at that moment. Yeah. But before that, nobody noticed. And so it was really kind of a difficult experience for me. But so the teacher wanted to improve the situation. Yeah. But still the bullying went on, and in hiding places after school and so on. Yeah, so when the teachers are not watching us. So at that time, bullying went on, but I really felt I should get over. And one thing I thought as a strategy to survive is to study hard, to defeat them. That is the only way to get over this difficulty for me. So I started to study very hard, which I didn't before, but at the age of 13 or so, I realized, how important studying is, and to defeat them. Yeah, that is kind of a main purpose for me. Okay. Yeah, but that it can be a great like a survival strategy. So that's really made me what I am today. Yeah, and of course, it can be like a blessing in disguise for me. Yeah. So that's really enhanced me now, and also that's really encouraged me. Yeah. But it is also difficult for all the people who are bullied in Japan to get over. So they need to find something like a strategy. Otherwise, some kill themselves. Yeah, and that's happened a lot. Yeah, even now, and of course. But when I become a teacher, I really can relate to the students' feelings. Yes. So but I really didn't want to share my own experience with them because I wanted to be a little away from my own hardship. Yeah, so it was difficult for me to share my own feelings until now, like only recently that I can share my own experience. And it is a great opportunity for me to share my own hardship with you. And we can start to make the situation better, collaboratively, which is great, great for me. So everything can be like blessing for me to change my own life and to change the inclusive education in a better way.
Okay, I see, Andrew, you resonate with what she says, with studying and things like that. Is that something that you agree with? It's like getting
something that she said that resonated with me, and I think when we talk about bullying, we talk about sticks and stones, especially you use the term sticks and stones, right? Back home, when I say back home, I mean Jamaica, we would use that term, sticks and stones may break my bone, but words won't harm me. And the older I got, I realized that was not true. That was absolutely not true. And I'm listening to you and it's resonating because I think sometimes what we forget to do is to speak to our students, to say to them how harmful the words they're using. I find, and this is maybe where, I may differ with a lot of people, but I find as educators, we are not doing a good enough job in holding bullies accountable. We have to be saying to our students, what you said was harmful, what you said was hurtful. And I have been that teacher. I have been that teacher to say to a student, and I've had parents come to me very upset with that, but I stand very strong into that you have to let your child know that because of their actions, an entire person is crying, don't want to be in school, don't wish to do their work, wish they were somebody else, wish they were not present, all because of somebody else's word. So I think we need to call, I know many persons, it's a topic we're still struggling with, the idea of calling out, calling in. I think we really need to be clear and calling out the harm that bullying is doing to our students today. And I listen to you and I'm thinking to myself, what hurt and harm is happening to you right in the classroom? And something else you said, when you said the teacher took a month to see it. Think what happens in a month that until the teacher gets to see that hurt. What is happening in a month? And so we have to be a little bit more alert, a little bit more mindful. As educators, I think we really need to be able to see the signs and the signals that's saying this child is being bullied. So that's what resonated with me. I want to share that.
But even after my tutor found the situation, he told me and the other bullying students that both sides are wrong. So there are something wrong in both sides. So even to me, something different from the other students. That's why I have some element to be bullied. Yeah, he said, and to my parents too. So being different from the others, living with my handicapped brother, is that different? So I think it should be like a society where we can coexist together, help together, understanding the differences.
And that's a really interesting point, Yuko, because one of the things we were going to ask you guys about was what it was that you felt motivated the bullying in the first place. Like, what was it about you or your situation that you feel initiated the bullying?
or just their intention.
Yeah. What was their purpose in it?
Yeah, what was their...
So I think in my case, it was, I have ADHD. As a kid, I did not know I had ADHD, and nor did any of my peers. And I guess it looks different in somebody assigned female at birth, in that I wasn't running around the place. I was talking more than anyone else, and not being able to pick up the cues as to when I should stop and let somebody else come in. Yeah. Even now, it's something that I've got to be really aware of. But I was always really enthusiastic and really invested in my friendships. Yes. And so I couldn't tell when somebody else wasn't invested. And it was really easy for them to take advantage of my big feelings. I was somebody who was really easy to hurt. And so in those situations, I think they didn't know how to deal with me in conversation, and the response was to other me. Yeah. And also, I think was possibly an element of finding it a little bit fun to upset me, and how easy it was to upset me. And I was a very emotional kid, so there was also a making fun of me crying and making fun of my emotions. And so at this point, I'm like, well, okay, I really wish people knew I was neurodivergent, and that the teachers and the other students had been aware of that, and that there'd been supports for them to give me a bit of space to be neurodivergent, and yes, for me to be aware of why, or the points at which I was maybe differing from the others and could potentially support them to support me in those moments. But yeah, it's only retrospectively that I can recognize that.
Yeah, and so, I mean, all of you have offered instances where this is a repetitive thing. Are there, because, you know, bullying appears to be very difficult to define. Could there be a once-off bullying but not that you're aware of? No.
I definitely experienced harassment at one point in school where somebody said an anti-Jewish slur. And that was really, like, so my family is Jewish, and in Ireland that's really unusual. And I remember that being something that really stuck with me. I was in the context of a wider set of bullying, but I know that there are specific moments, especially when it's identity-based, where one comment is almost as hurtful as a prolonged piece. But it's a little different to bullying because it is still one incredibly hurtful comment rather than systemically being excluded.
And then also, as you were saying, what is the intention behind it? Yeah,
it's hurt. It's the intention behind bullying is hurt. It's you're different from us, right? And so you're different, so something must be wrong with you. You said it when the teacher said both sides. We have come into a society where we see difference as deficit. We see difference as less than. We see different as abnormal. We see difference as unworthy. We have not come to the place when we have learned to celebrate difference. We have not come to that place as yet. You said something that was so powerful that it really impacted me when you said, if they had known, they'd give me some more space. I want us to just think about the power in what you just said. You said, if they had known, they would give me some more space. So I believe that we need to talk about difference more so we can know, and so we know what to do with difference. What to do with difference. It's okay. Oh, okay. All the girls traditionally wear skirts. But guess what? This particular student don't wish to wear a skirt. This particular student is different. Oh, we moved on. Yes. It's not a secret like, well, why is this student not wearing a skirt? We have to be clear on the differences. And, you know, one of the big, and give me another minute on this one, one of the big topics about bullying we have right now in Canada, where I'm living, North America, is immigrants and language. I think when I walk into a room and people are speaking all the different language, I am so excited. I don't know what they're saying, but I'm loving it. As a perfect example, this morning when we began our recording of this session, everyone introduced themselves. Listening to everybody saying their names, I just think it was It was so fabulous. I just feel fabulous. Because the difference for me is fabulous. I can tell you in another space, there would be people listen to you all saying your name and they'll be like offended. Why I can't understand her? What is she saying? What is that? That's not English. That sounds silly. That sounds stupid. And immediately difference is labeled in such deficit way. We have to come to a place where we have to define difference and that it is beautiful. It is beautiful. I don't want to be the same color crayon as you. Yes. I don't want to be the same color crayon as you. Yes. I don't want us to have the same hairstyle. I don't want us to wear the same clothes. Duh. We have to come to a place with our students that say to our students, it's different and it's beautiful. That for me is going to need to be a slogan. It's different and it's beautiful. We don't need to be scrutinizing it. It's different and it's beautiful.
May I add to your thing? It's really impressive, and I really totally agree with you. And I think enjoying and respecting differences is really related to cross-cultural understanding. So when we face something difficult, we might feel it is strange, but it should be interesting to enjoy. Yeah. So meeting people from different backgrounds is really exciting for me. That's why I major in like cross-cultural understanding and also like a global education. So it's so to get a global understanding, we should respect the difference and enjoy them. Yeah. So how exciting they are and so on. And one thing I'd like to add for the definition of bullying, I think it's one individual versus the group.
Yes.
And at first, I was the only one bullied, and 2 or 3 my classmates started to bully me, but the group became bigger, and the other following students wanted to join because they don't want to be bullied. If they save me, then they might be the next target to be bullied. So that's why the group became bigger and bigger, and the whole classroom became a big group versus me. So I think I was told that I have something wrong. That's why I became a target by the teachers. And even now, that kind of thought is very spread all over Japan. They tend to think that way too. Even now. So, but I strongly believe that one person versus a group, it is really unbalanced, and it's really unfavorable and not equal situation. We cannot fight each other. One by one, it's okay because we can discuss and we can argue, attack each other maybe, but one person versus group. So one person has a lot of advantage, very weak, right?
So on that topic, when you're in that situation, of course, there is the bully, the perpetrator, the aggressor, right? But there are also people who are maybe pro-bully or on your side, and then there are people that are just bystanders. How do the other role players make you feel? Is it you focus just on the person, or do they also have some impact? Because we cannot just address this and that. No. We also need to say, what do other people do? And so that as teachers, we bring attention to the other role players. Sam, you want to say something on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would have seen most people, unfortunately, in my context, would have just joined in. Yeah. Yeah. I think as I got older, it was finding the people that were safe, finding the people who and often, in my case, it was people who wouldn't stand up necessarily to the bullies, but who would still hang out with me separately. But, and I think as children, it is very hard to do that standing up. Yeah. And often it is just showing friendship all the same at the same time. But it's very hard. Like, it's really hard to see somebody still remain friends with someone who's done such harm to you. And actually, it's as a person experiencing that, I actually chose to extract myself even from that scenario, even though, even though it wasn't it wasn't them doing the bullying. It was very hard to be in that space with those people.
For me, the response I have is similar to yours, and it is what do we do with all the other persons around, okay? And so for me, as a teacher, I used to say to the students, you want to be strong, be the friend of the person who is being bullied. And I've had that philosophy for years. If you want to show yourself different or you want to be a real ally, we like to use the word ally, right? Be the friend of the person who is bullied. And I've actually taught students to say to them, you are so popular, you are so powerful. You could change this dynamics. And the one thing you could do is be the friend of the person being bullied. And as a tool, I would say to teachers who are participating in this or listen to this video, I would say to my students who are strong, I said, this is how you use your strength. This is how you use your power. This is how you use your privilege. When you see that bully, that child who's being bullied by themselves, eating in the cafeteria or by themselves, I said, take your tray and go sit beside them. I said, you would be shocked the level of power you have. And I've seen students do that. I say, you don't need to do nothing. You don't need to fight for them. You don't need to come to the office. You don't need to do nothing. Just when you see that person who is being bullied by themselves, go sit with them. Because what I'm trying to do is say to my students, let's focus on the person who is being bullied, not on the bully. Because if you look at it in our classroom, we have given so much time and attention to the bully. The bully likes to go to the office. For those who don't know,
Yes.
they like to go to the office. They like to be seen. They like to be talked about. They like to know that the focus is on them. I try my best to take the focus off the bully and put nothing but fabulousness on the person who is being bullied. And so that has been my strategy, and it has worked for me. I highlight and feature in a positive way the person who is being bullied. So for instance, in your example, I'd move your desk maybe to the front. Because I know you're smart and you are intense with your work, I'll call on you to answer questions more often. I'm using a strategy where I want to pull you in, give you the attention and not the bully. So that has been my personal strategy, and it has worked. I know it's not perfect, but I'm shining light on that student and giving and dimming the light on the bully, because that's what they need. They need light. They need attention.
It's interesting there in all of your answers. You all spoke a little bit to isolation. And I suppose that's one of the in the moment effects of bullying. But I suppose for student teachers going into classrooms as professionals, hopefully in the near future, how did the bullying affect you in a longer term capacity? Because I think it's important to understand that actually, you know, it doesn't just stay in childhood.
I know for me, I had a number of different situations where I fell out with friends, and most people were able to repair those friendships. I just went away. I isolated myself much quicker than others because the pattern I'd seen was this was going to just end up in torment.
Yeah.
So the moment there was a falling out, I just kind of removed myself from the situation to prevent myself from being tormented further. Interestingly, when I transitioned, I found social situations much easier. So I was very, very awkward socially up until the point where I transitioned. And I guess I was expected to have different, come into a conversation in a different way that was much more comfortable for me. No idea why, but actually that was the point where kind of my trajectory shifted. But I still don't have close friends. I have loads of acquaintances. I don't have close friends any longer. And I find it hard to keep close friends because, yeah. And it's still very strange. I'm 30 now, but it's still something that I think impacts me.
Thank you.
Yeah, for me, it was really hard to find a close friend too, and also it's hard for me to share my own feelings, being honest with the others, because I try to hide the kind of things inside me, and just to make the other bullying students feel really defeated is kind of my purpose to live. Yeah, but the more I study, the more the bullying become intense, more intense. the bullying became, actually, in fact. So the students, the teacher, for my teacher, he tried to solve something, but it's not effective at all. So like, it is a great idea for you to find like leading students. If you ask the kind of leader students to be like to be with the being bullied students, it is a great idea, and the selected leading students can feel really like respected, right, by the teachers, and he or she can be like more responsible for their own attitude, and feel like oh, I'm like a heroine or a Superman or Supergirl to protect, to take care of the other classmates who are bullied. So it's really nice for both sides, I guess. Yeah, for the being bullied students and also the selected students. So it's great, and you can make the students be respected, by the others. Yeah.
For me, it's different. For me, it has not isolated me. It has not isolated me. It propelled me. It pushed me, right? And it's funny because during Pride season in Canada is June, I do quite a bit of speaking engagements. And this year, 2024, my theme has been flourishing in all our identities. And so what I've done is say to people the ways in which, I use a plant as an example, the ways in which if we do what we need to do with students who are being bullied, or students who identify as TWIS, LGBTQIA+, the ways in which they can flourish. I use that image of a rose in a concrete. I use that to start, that the fact that, oh yeah, it's a beautiful rose, but it shouldn't be in a concrete. It shouldn't have to grow. So for me, at one point, I used to really be and I can feel my emotions shifting right now. I used to be very strong in telling my story of resistance. I used to be so proud of talking about resilience because I would tell you, I sent myself to school. I fund myself financially. I was not only LGBTQ, but I was poor, right? We grew up poor. And I sent myself to do my teacher. I sent myself to school for my master, my PhD. I've paid every single dollar. It felt good to say those things. It felt good to always talk about how resilient I was. And a couple years ago, one day it just clicked in me, that I shouldn't have had to be so resilient. What if I was just given the amount of water and sunlight and soil and nutrient that I need? So for me, I am very big on saying to the students who are being bullied or the students who are feeling less than, what is it that you need? What is it? And I use sunlight, the water, the soil as metaphor. What is it that you need so you can thrive? So for me, it made me thrive, right? Because I know if I know as a bully, they had very low expectations. I was expected to die of HIV. Let's be honest. I was expected to have AIDS and die, and you're going to be this, you're not going to be nothing, you're not going to get a job. The fact that I am a professor at Canada's top university, that for me is like you. It's the but it's pushed me. The fact that I've published books, the fact that I've done this. So I wouldn't say I have overcompensated. What I've done is that, as you said, I focus on me being the best self. And so what you see today, like I tell the young people, is a product, right? And so when last thing I say, when the young people see me and they go, oh, Dr. ABC, I wish I could be like you. I go, oh. I said, I know you like this, but I always take them back to that stage where I was scared of my own voice. I'm on a lot of videos now, and we make joke about this. I heard myself the first time on a video, and I go, I sound so gay. Because I was taught how to be scared of my own voice, how to be scared of how I gesticulate. Now I can't. I think I am amazing how I speak with my hands. Yeah. I need to insure these hands.
Yes.
Right? But it comes from a place of not liking who you are to now absolutely loving who you are. And so that's the journey.
First acceptance.
Thank you.
That's key.
What you said really resonates, and for me, it was that sense of justice.
Yes.
I didn't necessarily get the self-empowerment for quite a while, by that sense of justice, of this is wrong, and seeing all the other injustices in the world. And that's been my purpose, is okay, the world is kind of awful to people who are different.
Yes.
How am I going to be part of changing that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you do a fabulous job.
So I think having hardship is like a blessing of disguise. So that's really, like I said. So I think it's kind of a blessing. So to raise me up and to enhance my own identity, and that made me what I am today. So yeah, so I really to thank the bullying students now.
I wouldn't thank them, but
We have to thank them.
but it's what you said is powerful, though. Yeah.
I don't want
my
to thank you.
motivation.
That's right.
And so you're all touching on here you are, but for the environment, it could have been a lot different. And the role that the teacher, the school plays in that is so important. And it has to start at a very young age. So what is it that you and you alluded to that in terms of teaching, for example, embracing the diversity and making children see that a crayon box with all one color is boring, and that's what makes the world fabulous. What else do you think could teachers or the school do to create that nurturing environment? Because when they're young, there is that need for nurturing and to be seen.
I could go first. And I want to say, and I speak directly to teachers, classroom teachers, your class is a home space. Your students spend most of their waking hours at school. Make the classroom a place where all children can flourish. And it's not as hard as it sounds. And I'm not going to give you any extra policies and framework and resources and documents. I'm going to say those elements are kindness, empathy, love, care. Those little things, what we think are the little things, are the major things in our classroom. Create a classroom where all students can flourish. And if you ask me, what does flourishing mean? Think about the ways in which a plant can grow. Think about the ways in which a plant will grow, and do that in your classroom. Bring in the sunlight, bring in the water, bring in the nutrient, bring in the things that allow your students to flourish. And you'll start to see an absolute change in the classroom environment, because you are in charge of creating the culture and the climate in a classroom. And the last thing I'd say is, teachers, we need to take it as our responsibility, that it is my job to make sure my classroom is the best. Own it, own it, own it.
And addressing the harm, you were saying, yeah.
I think to add to Andrew's point, I think I'd also instill a sense of curiosity. Yes. Yeah. Because I think when the response to difference is fear or worried that you're going to be associated with that difference, and therefore you want to pick on a person before you get picked on yourself. If the response to difference is curiosity, is learning, is finding out about other cultures, other identities, other ways of seeing the world, you're then bringing people together and starting to celebrate that difference. But I think curiousness is probably what I see as the most powerful response to difference. In terms of the response, seeing it, because one of the things I didn't say is I noticed bullying outside of my friendship group. The people in my friendship group were being worse to me than the bullies outside my friendship group. The people I told the teachers about were the people outside of my friendship group. If the teachers had been more observant as to what was happening in the dynamics within that friendship group, I may not have had 10 years of that. So I wasn't able to tell on my friends. I wasn't able to say what was happening with the person who I wanted to be my best friend. The teacher probably could have intervened in that situation where I couldn't have asked them to.
So in terms of that, our student teachers who are going to become teachers, these are some of the lessons that you would want them to learn and take on. At the same time, you have things like policies who can, although it is enforced on top, and Cleaner is a school principal, and so she would know how that leadership position is so important, because a fish rots from its head, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I think Andrew's point has been resonated with me most, is that it is that we spend so much time with our students, and that's one thing I always try to impart to my teaching staff, is some of these kids see you more than they see their parents. Yes. So you actually have as important a role in their lives and the formation of their character as their parents do. So you have to model the way you would want maybe to raise your own children in some ways. But I think, and I see this as a school leader hugely, what we're struggling with in my school, for example, is not so much the person-on-person, in-person bullying. It's the whole social media, cyber bullying thing. And well, with the exception of Sam, the rest of us probably grew up before the internet was even invented. So I suppose my question is, how do we help the children navigate the bully they can't see?
You know what? I'll jump in there quickly. You know what? We have to come to the place as teachers, as educators, to say we don't know it all. I had a conversation with my nephew last year, 2023, and the same month I had a conversation with another young man about the things on the internet. And I didn't understand why they were so hurt and offended and scared by people who I think don't even matter to them. But then I had to sit back and realize it actually mattered to them more than I know. So to be honest, this is a new learning for me. And as an educator, we have to be honest about what we don't know. So for me, honestly, I would sit in a good cyber, internet, social media bully lecture right now and take in the stuff so I could understand what's going on. Because as you said, I was before that kind of stuff. And I'm listening to my nephew and another young man, how bothered they are. And I'm thinking to myself, can you just log out? And I realized, no, they can't just log out. They live in social media. It's a language. It's almost like a citizenship. They say right to be on social media. And so I realized that the persons who are saying, well, just log out, it's the older folks. It's us. And so I want to learn, and this is maybe a good thing for us as educators to say, no, you don't know everything. I want to learn what's happening behind the laptop, the computer, all that's going on that makes them need to be a part, make them need to show up online in a way that I don't understand. So there's more for us to understand.
Yeah, and cyberbullying, just by virtue of the fact that that person sits alone at home and gets hundreds, if not thousands of negative reviews that they try and filter, and there's no one to see that. So you're absolutely right. Our student teachers hopefully are much younger, and that they would know.
Yes.
They grow up in this and have to be aware and address it in the classroom, because parents don't always see it. They try at a young age to curb internet use and social media use, but once they're out there and once they are, teenage angst, and they are just more vulnerable. And a lot of that are sometimes even stronger than the overt hurt and bullying and physical bullying and so on. You want to say
I think you almost have to have a harm reduction model when it comes to social media. And it's one of the things we've spoken about recently in a higher education context for staff. Talking about, okay, who has access to your social media account? Like, how locked down is that account? What information do you have up about yourself? Yes. All of those pieces that makes it means that you're less likely to get that mob coming in. You may still experience cyberbullying, but it's by people you know, and therefore people you can actually deal with in an in-person scenario. Because if you're subjected to the entire internet, you're in a place where you've got thousands of people who potentially are jumping on this bandwagon. I remember at 16, I was the last person in my class to have a Bebo account. Bebo doesn't even exist any longer. But I remember, because I was the last person in my class to have a Bebo account, somebody set up a fake Bebo and started to talk as if they were using my voice on this platform, put up my real phone number, my real address. Wow. And like, I remember at that point, you got the guards involved, you got the police involved, because it was really the start of the internet being part of young people's lives. Today, it's still an option in many spaces too, but the amount that can be done because of how large those social media platforms are is much less than was at that stage. So I think, because young people are going to be on social media, there's almost no way of stopping them. The computers are part of our daily lives. In order to do life, you need to be on the internet, basically. It's how do you teach responsible social media use by locking places down so that you're not subjected to the entire world. It's just your social circle.
I like that harm reduction method. Yeah.
I think teachers' perception is very important. In addition to that, I think we should set up like an environmental setting to improve for the inclusive setting. So when I visited Germany in 2017 as a seminar participants, and I was selected one of 8 instructors there, and I visited 24 institutions, including hospitals or youth center, universities, and also many other after-school clubs and so on. And I was really amazed at the setting. In the kindergarten, one handicapped student was sitting in the center of the classroom, and the other students are surrounding the student. And that setting was really important, and they are taking care of one student, and they involve everything. Yeah? So the person is not left behind, actually the center, kind of a star, and the other students can look at the student all the time. And it was a great setting, I think. And the German inclusion is more advanced than Japan, I thought, maybe 10 years behind, I think. Yeah, so I was really admired, and I really admired this kind of inclusive setting. So infrastructure should be renovated and reformed, and education system should be reformed, I guess. Yeah, that is another importance to enhance our inclusive education.
And we wish for the day when all people can just be.
Just be.
And it doesn't have to, and it doesn't have to be to the focus, and I can understand there's a exclusion, but also the idea that however you are, as long as you are treated equitably, that should be our goal. And so always remembering the child at the center. The child, and you're just bringing that, but the child center, doesn't matter who that child is, whatever their needs, because all of us have some needs at some time where we're feeling down. So then the attention, then I get that attention, but I don't need to get everything, yeah? So we want that. There was one thing, these are going to be new teachers, right? So we're talking to our student teachers. There's also this idea of getting this kind of bullying from learners. And especially if you're teaching more on the upper primary and secondary, it can feel overwhelming. Do you have any tips for the student teachers out there? How do they handle that?
I would say, it's knowledge. Knowledge also builds confidence, right? Be prepared for the classroom. I think a lot of teachers, young teachers, take it for granted. I see it happen in my own program where they believe if I go in the classroom, I just do this, I just show up like this, it's going to be okay. You have to plan for effective teaching. You have to plan for effective classroom environment. You said something about the centers you went around in Germany, and you talk about the physical setting. You have to even plan for the physical setting. The physical setting, the content, plan for your classroom, your environment. And I would say to the young people, just like how you're planning for your vacation, just like how you're planning for your vacation, you make sure all your makeup is out, you make sure all your bathing suit, you make sure all of this, you plan for the classroom. Planning eliminates a lot of issues. Effective planning, that is, eliminates a lot of the distraction and the issues. And I've been an administrator in school, and I've seen situations where there's so much distraction. And if you check it, the planning is very, very limited or is not there because they think classroom is going to just happen. And I would say to the young people, when you go into a classroom and you see magic, when you see a teacher, whether it's an older or younger, even a young teacher like yourself, doing magic, it's not really magic. It's effective teaching. Teachers make the magic. Yes. And I just want to say to you, young teachers, go make the magic. The magic is in you. Go make the magic. And the magic takes away, is one of my favorite quotes, the magic will take away the mess. Come on now.
That note,
right?
On that note, we will end the All Means All Forum today. Our guests, we thank you so very much for being vulnerable and for reaching out to us, reaching out to our students. I think what you've provided to us is a lot of food for thought, and we really, really appreciate it. Thank you.